Hello, it's Phil here at digitaldjtips.com with our review of the Pioneer DDJ-RZ controller. This is a beast, as I'm sure you're already thinking, and this is a very aspirational controller. Most people who look at this are going to want it. But is it right for you? And that's what this review is going to help you with. We're going to talk about what the features are on this controller, how it fits in with other DJ controllers, and then at the end of the review we'll come back to that question, is it right for you, and what would your alternatives be if it isn't right for you. So let's talk a little bit about how this came about, where it fits in. Now, most DJs with laptops have used software to DJ from up until now, whether they're using digital vinyl systems or whether they're using controllers. They've had software on their laptops, something like Traktor or Serato, Virtual DJ. Your software's on your laptop, has your library in it, has all the clever stuff in it, and you plug it into the back of your DJ controller, and your DJ controller acts like a glorified keyboard, really. You know, you can do most of it on the keyboard, but it's a lot more fun using jog wheels and buttons and faders and so on. So that's the way most DJs have performed with software up until now. However, Pioneer has had a different approach. Pioneer's approach has always been to have software that you analyze your music on and prepare your music on before your DJ set. But then when you're ready to go off to the club, you plug a USB stick or a pen drive into your computer and you export your prepared music to that drive, and that comes with you to the DJ booth. Now, because you've done a lot of the heavy lifting before you got there, when you plug that drive into a Pioneer Rekordbox enabled setup, CD players basically with a big mixer in the middle, but they've developed a lot since the early ones. When you plug it into there, the whole thing acts very similar to a DJ controller, but there's no laptop there. And that's been Pioneer's preferred approach up until now. But now Pioneer's offering DJs the choice because it now has an extension to Rekordbox, to the free Rekordbox library software basically, an extension to it called Rekordbox DJ, and what that does is turn it into full DJ software like Traktor, Virtual DJ, Serato and all the others. So now you have a choice if you're a Pioneer user. You can plug your laptop into a Pioneer system and DJ with it, and these are the first two controllers that it's come out with, the DDJ-RZ, which is this one, or the RZ, and the RX. So if you want to use Pioneer gear, if you're interested in Pioneer's new software platform, this is one of the two controllers that you're looking at. So with that stated, let's have a look at this controller, and at the end we'll come back to that question, is it right for you? We're going to start off by getting around the back of it and looking at some of those inputs and outputs to give you an idea of the scope of this thing. Then we'll have a tour of this big surface here. So let's start on my left here. It's what I call a kettle lead, one of these big leads going in here. So that means that's going straight into the wall. There's no transformer, and it's not going to wiggle out like on some cheaper controllers. So that's a good start there. There's your on-off button, and you also have your two USBs here. This is for two computers. So if you're playing with another DJ, someone else can come along and plug their computer in here, and you can have a seamless switch over with no gap in the music. Big selling point of this. You find that on some very expensive DJ mixes, and it's good to see it on a DJ controller. We have the two microphone inputs here, useful for mobile DJs because you can have a radio mic to have, you know, the wedding speech stuff going on, and a microphone of your own or whatever configuration you want, and they both plug in there. I'll show you some more microphone controls shortly. So at the back here are our four inputs for our standalone mixer, so in the middle of back here. So we have two sets which also have a record deck input, and that's what this little bit here is. It's a ground terminal where you put the third lead that comes from record decks made by some manufacturers, notably Technics. You connect the third lead to these, and that stops background hum and buzzing. So that's why there's four inputs here. These are for two of the channels. So you've got two for phono, for record deck, and two for line inputs. And here we have two other line inputs. So effectively you could plug 4 CDs in there if you wanted, 2 CDs and 2 record decks, any combination. You could also plug in your backup source like a iPhone or an iPod or something, just in case everything goes down and you need to quickly get the music up and running again. So basically a full 4-channel mixer input there. Now over here we have our outputs, and our outputs are pretty standard for this kind of grade of equipment. So we have 2 master outputs. These are balanced XLRs to go straight off to a PA system that might have a long leap, you know, of more than about 10 meters. And these are the shorter versions. So if you've got speakers nearby, you just need to connect up to an amplifier that's nearby. You can use these RCAs, these unbalanced connectors here. And these two are the booth outputs that have a separate volume control for your speakers that are nearby. So basically a very comprehensive output there. There's your Kensington lock in order to make sure no one wanders off with it, although it's pretty heavy to wander off with without getting noticed. Okay, so having seen all that lot, let's just get this lid off and we'll have a look at the top of the unit. So right here in the middle is a Pioneer mixer, and it is a Pioneer mixer. You know, it looks very similar to the mixers that you'll find in DJ booths or you can buy separately from Pioneer. We have 4 channels controlling either the audio coming from your computer, if you switch into USB at the top here, or here's our 2 CD channels. These just go to CD by going like that. And these ones have got your line, phono and USB. Line and CD means the same thing. It's basically an input from something external. So there's your inputs. Here's our USB switches. We're switching between A and B. So in other words, we have 2 round the back where we can plug in 2 computers, as we saw a second ago, and this is where you choose which one is plugged into each. So that's how you can have your DJ switchovers really easily. And let's talk through the mixer from top to bottom. So effects, this assigns the effect units, there's one there and one there, to the channels. So that says if I was to press 1 there, that means that effect unit 1 is on this channel, and that means effect unit 2 is on this channel, or both actually. Now we have the very standard trim, which is again, it decides how loud the input is to start with. Then we have high, mid and low, and then we have the fader here, which decides how much of that volume from the trim actually gets through into your main mix. This knob here is the color effect, is the sound color effect. So let's get something playing and I'll show you this working. So you choose one of 4 effects here. So for instance, filter. And there's my filter on one knob. But there's some others as well. There's a jet. Phaser kind of sound. Space is a really nice effect. It's just a kind of reverb. I quite like space. Let's have a listen to that. Nice and subtle for those long sweeps. Pitch, not very useful for me, but hey, some people will find it useful. This one does what it says on the tin, really. Alters of pitch. So you've got a good choice of effects there. There's another effects engine on this over here, which is the oscillator sampler effects. Now these are set to some pretty cheesy things. That noise effect, this one you'll hear all over the place, and this one. And there's a sine wave. I don't know how you'd ever use this in a DJ set, but let's have a listen to it. There's a parameter knob for it here, so. And there's also volume control if you really want to annoy people. There you go. But the good news about these, and there is good news about these, you can change these in the software to noises that you can drop in, which are a little bit less intrusive, a little bit less cheesy. So these have got the names printed on them there, but you can change them, so bear that in mind. Okay, so what else have we got? So we have, we've talked about these channels here. We have channel fader start, so that means that by holding down the shift button, you can select channel fader start here, which will allow you to let this fader start the music when you pull it up. And a lot of mobile DJs like having that. So you can toggle that on and off. We also have this A, B and through. That decides whether the channel goes to the left-hand side, which is A, the right-hand side, which is B, or just straight through the mix from that channel. So that channel there, if I set that to channel A and put that to B, the music goes off. So that's pretty simple stuff there, pretty standard stuff. By the way, you can't see this, but actually you might be able to on the other camera. Around the front here, we have a crossfader curve, which is pretty nice. And that's good for scratching, so you can set the crossfader to be really tight. Okay, so that's how the mixer is. You've got full VU meters for all channels, which is really nice. Let's just get that playing again, just in case we need it. We've got full VU meters for each channel, so you can see there's our input that's governed by that trim. And here's our overall output, it's covered by that, so that's nice. That's what DJs need to properly gain stage and make sure everything sounds nice and clean. And overall, this mixer is like a simple version of Pioneer Pro DJ mixers. This area here is very simplified compared to Pro DJ mixers, but this area here and these areas here are pretty standard. They're pretty much exactly what you get on the Pro mixers. And here's our microphone down here. So you've got on off for the microphone and talk over. Talk over dips the volume of the microphone when you're talking. I don't have a microphone plugged in now, so we're not going to hear that. And there's EQ for the mic as well, which is nice. And there's your 2 mic levels. So the EQ's just got high and low for the microphone. There's a sampler as well. there's your sample volume for the sampler. I'll talk a bit more about the sampler in a bit. Okay, so there's our mixer. Let's move on to the decks. We're just going to move on to one of the decks because they're both absolutely identical, and they are identical, and that means that they're laid out with, for instance, the tempo is on the right-hand side of the deck. There's our tempo there. And on this one, it's on the right-hand side as well. Some DJ controllers, this is going to be over here. So it's like more like a mirror image on some DJ controllers. But this is being true to the Pioneer CDJs by having these two units exactly the same. This line down here and this area here, exactly the same on both sides. So let's talk through what we've got. Well, we have here the library control. This lets you scroll through your library, and you can push to tag tracks as well, which is a nice way of sorting through stuff on there. So we can then use this button here just to go back, and when we're back we can go through different areas of our collection using that, and then using shift there's other areas here, so we can turn on and off our tag list and stuff like that. So that's all nice. That's a good comprehensive library section. At the top here we've got the effects. So the effects are 1, 2, 3 effects and a beat button, very similar to Serato here, and you can set the effects both in the software by using the effects panel here to bring the effects panel up and to switch between the 3 types of effects, the color effects, which you can set in software as well, and these. You can also set these so this is one effect with 3 parameters, again very similar to Serato and Traktor in that respect. So turn that on and off in the software by pressing the buttons, so you can decide whether or not you're going to have that taking up valuable real estate. And then we have other nice controls around here that you tend to see on a lot of top-end DJ controllers. So the slip reverse is this one here. Goes backwards but remembers where you were. When I released it there, it was on the 1 beat, which is nice. And then by holding down shift you just get a normal reverse, which doesn't do that, just goes backwards and forwards again. Here we have a normal slip function, so it's the same kind of thing, it just carries on playing underneath. So I could go like that, scratch a bit, and it carries on where it was. I'm no scratch DJ, as you probably just found out. And there's also the vinyl on off here, so we press shift and press that. So now the whole jog wheel is slowing down and speeding up the track for manual beat matching with the other deck as a kind of nudge. But if I press shift and that again, the side will do that. The top is scratch. So here's our deck buttons. You can control 2 decks with each of these. That's deck 1 I'm controlling now. I can switch to deck 3 there, which currently has nothing on it, but I could switch to deck 3. You can press them both at the same time, and you can control both decks together, which is pretty cool. So in other words, you could have 2 things you like lined up and synced up, and you can scratch, and it would scratch them both together. That's pretty unique. I don't think there's any other software that has that, or any other controllers that have that, apart from Pioneer ones. Okay, so that's kind of down this end. This is nice, the jog feel. So this is actually mechanical. There's something in there. This spins, watch this. Let's get the, there you go. Look how long that spanned for. Now if I put jog feel on heavy, and this is actually mechanical, it's clicking. You see that? Compared to that? Jog wheel is an awful lot looser when you have that on light. So you can adjust it to how you want it, which is good. So we have a vinyl speed adjust here. So if I turn that on high and press stop, see how long that takes to stop? When I put it on low, it stops like that instantly. So again, that's a nice pro feature, lifted straight from Pioneer CDJs from the DJ booth. Down here, the standard play, pause and cue and sync. And down here we have a full loop section, so we can start a loop, move a loop, halve and double the size of the loop, re-trigger it, exit it and so on. Here's the pad section. Again, there's nothing massively new here from people who are used to DJ controllers, but I'll talk you through it. We have hot cues here. There's a hot cue. Now you can hear that's quantized. It doesn't really matter when I touch that, it's going to be on the beat. This is a quantized button. I'll turn that off. And it's not quantized. I'll just turn slip off there. So you get a choice there, and you can set quantize in the software as well. The pad effects, these are using these pads for effects. Now the top ones are just loop rolls. The bottom ones are various effects. You've got a delay there, kind of a filter with an LFO. Hear that an awful lot on the radio. A reverb there, and a break. So there's some pad effects there for you. The slicer, I'm not even going to demo the slicer. It just slices the track up. All right, I'll try to. I've never heard anyone make a slicer sound good, frankly. I don't know why they put them on DJ controllers. There's also a sampler there. By holding down Shift, you can have a velocity sample there. The color changes slightly. That just means that the sampler responds to these pads, which are velocity sensitive as well. There's a slicer loop, which is a different version of the slicer that holds the track where it is. And there's other pad effects. These are more useful. Kind of like a transformer there, another transformer there, another transformer, sometimes called gates. They can be quite useful in DJ sets. Get some nice vocal effects with those. And we have a pitch drop, a crush, noise, and echo. There are parameters you can mess about with these as well. You're not stuck with what you've got there. So that's that area there. As I say, it's pretty standard stuff, but having said that, it's pretty comprehensive stuff. There's a great sequencer built in here. Now, I'm not going to show you this because I just haven't got time to load loads of samples up, but it's really good. You can take loops straight from the tracks you're playing, drop them onto slots, and play them back, all quantized up nicely. And there's lots and lots of banks, so you can get about 64 samples all going in there, or all loaded in there, and save them out as well. That's a really good feature. You can record what you do from that as well. So definitely worth playing with if you want to get into a bit of DJ producing and live remixing. It's a sequencer on here. You don't get that with the Pioneer DDJ-RZ and SX. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more in a second, so just bear that in mind. So there's the main points of this part, of the deck part. Comprehensive, apart from lacking a screen at the top, which is of course what all Pioneer CDJs have in the DJ booth, where you don't have your laptop screen. It's got pretty much everything that those controllers from the DJ booth have in them. So very, very comprehensive, certainly the most comprehensive of anything that Pioneer's made for home use and for controller use. Okay, so a very capable controller, but is it for you? Well, it's a couple of $1,000, 1,500 UK pounds. It's an expensive controller. For a lot of people, that's just going to be too much. Fair enough, you know, but you are getting the best that Pioneer has of this type for that money. And it's about 40% cheaper than an equivalent Pioneer Nexus DJ booth setup. Now that's actually quite important, because if you're a new DJ or you've never played in pro DJ booths and you want to learn to DJ at home, but you really have aspirations to play in those places, well, you're going to want the learning curve between playing at home and playing in the club to be as shallow as possible, so to make it as easy as possible for you to make that leap. This controller is the best way of doing that. The jog wheels are exactly the same on Pioneer as on Pioneer Nexus controllers. The mixer feels very, very similar to any Pioneer mixer. Just those two things alone will prepare you better than any other gear for playing in the pro DJ booths that are enabled with Pioneer gear, which is probably 90% of them out there. So that's the first thing. If that's your aspiration, it's worth thinking very seriously about this. The second thing is that the software, the Pioneer Rekordbox software, when you unplug your controller, what you've got there is what DJs have used for a long time to prepare their music to play in pro Pioneer DJ booths. So in other words, you could prepare your music on there, put it on a USB drive and go and play in those places in exactly the same way as pro DJs have always done. Again, that means that if you're going to make the move from controller to pro DJ booth, you don't have to change any of your library, you don't have to change any of the analysis, the cue points, anything you've done to your music. It's a really seamless switch, a really seamless move up. If you are a mobile DJ and you've got your own setup, so basically everything's going in the back of your car or your van and you're taking your whole lot with you, PA, controller, lights and all that stuff, this is an awesome looking system. It just looks the part in the same way that something like the Numark NS7 III looks the part. You are not going to look like someone playing on a toy up there, and that means a lot when you're charging high fees and you've got an image to keep up. I saw someone playing at a wedding with the DDJ-RZ recently, and it looked awesome. It looked really good. It's part of a great setup. The guy came across as a total pro, and of course it's got the features, the 2 microphone inputs, talk over, external inputs and so on, which DJs who play those kind of gigs need. So again, it's going to tick your boxes. And of course, if you're a professional, then you're going to be able to afford this. It's not really going to be a big issue for you. And finally, if you're a pro DJ already, you play out all the time in Pioneer equipped DJ booths, having one of these at home will save you spending money on an unnecessary Nexus system. This could be your home system as well. So kind of in reverse of the scenario I painted at the beginning of this conclusion of people who are looking to move up to the pro DJ booth. If you're a pro DJ looking to move down to something at home, great choice. That said, you're going to want to consider this against the DDJ-RX. The DDJ-RX is the equivalent of the DDJ-SX, which is a long-standing and very popular Serato DJ controller, very similar to it in the same way this is very similar to the DDJ-RZ. And the DDJ-SX and RX are smaller, they don't have the two sound cards, but more or less they're equivalent to these. You get most of the stuff. So you're going to want to look closely as to whether a more portable, cheaper, smaller DDJ-RX is going to be better for you before shelling out the extra cash for this bigger, better equipped model. Also, while we're talking about the Pioneer S series, the Serato controllers that are very similar to these two, you're going to want to think about whether one of those might be better for you. And that's going to hinge on whether you are confident in the Rekordbox software. Rekordbox DJ is very good, but it's a version 1 and it's not as polished as Serato. Now, if you're happy to trust that it's going to improve and that it's going to become, a standard out there and it doesn't really bother you, well, if you buy the R series, you get the sequencer, so on the hardware. There are slight tweaks to the hardware here, which you don't get with the S series, but the SX and the SZ both work with Rekordbox. That's the point. So you buy one of those, which comes with Serato, and then just spend the small amount extra to get Rekordbox DJ. You've got two choices for your software. You've got two complete platforms that you can play with. You can switch between them. You can choose which one suits you best. You can't do that with the R series because they only work with Rekordbox. So worth considering that as well. Ultimately, if you're confident in Pioneer, if Pioneer is out there in the places that you think you're going to want to play, then it's just down to money. It's a great controller. The only thing that I would say is that I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or two Pioneer comes out with a controller that looks like this with big screens at the back. It looks even more like it's separate CD systems, just because that's the way the industry seems to be going now. Everyone's plonking screens on things. I have no insider knowledge about that idea at all, but maybe it'll happen. You don't really need it with a laptop sat there with its big screen on there, but if it's a nice to have for you, you might want to hang around. And the Pioneer XDJ-RX, actually, which is a controller that has one screen built in the middle, is now pretty good working with this software. So there's just one other little choice for you. It's the Pioneer DDJ-RZ, a very, very desirable controller. I hope this review has helped you decide if it's desirable enough for you to grab one. There's a full written review over at digitaldjtips.com. If you found this useful, we'd really like you to subscribe. There's a button somewhere near me on this page to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And there's also a link for you to join Digital DJ Tips, where we can keep in touch with you and bring you loads more good stuff straight to your inbox. So thank you for watching. Phil Morse for Digital DJ Tips with the Pioneer DDJ-RZ.